here in the city. And tonight, we usually have a lot of just general meetings when I talk to the residents. We talk about all sorts of topics, but tonight I think it's important to get out in front of you and talk about police issues, get a first-hand police briefing from the law enforcement community. We have Fire Police Operations Director Matt Heins and Lieutenant Elmer Hipp here tonight. Before we get too involved here, a couple housekeeping issues. If there is an emergency here tonight, there's exits at both ends of the room. And if you do need to use the restroom, there's restrooms out in the lobby via the elevators for convenience. So with those housekeeping issues taken care of, we'll start into the meeting. I don't have a wireless Proxima here, so I have to kind of walk back and forth. Meeting agenda tonight, we'll talk real quickly about an exciting program. We'll deviate off the seriousness of police that matters first, and we'll just talk quickly about the S4 program that we just announced, which is the Simply Smart Shopping Shuttle. We'll get a briefing from the Police and Fire Operations Director, Matt Heins. We'll take a look at what ward packs areas that we live in and who are the contact people in those packed areas so that you can get a hold of the law enforcement people that you need in that area. And then we'll do questions, and all we ask is that if you have multiple questions or comments or suggestions that you just let others have a chance to talk too, so that everybody gets a chance to talk. And then we'll wrap it up, and hopefully we can do it. I'll be here as long as you want to be here, but hopefully we can do it, an hour or so, and we'll get you home to see Verlander pitch tonight at the Tigers opener against Texas. Oh, well, here's the first thing is the new program. Just real quickly, I think a lot of people have heard about this already, but in the central part of the city and in the south central part of the city, we have a lot of residents that have issues with getting to the grocery stores. They have transportation issues. And one of the things that Michelle Woods, a council member down the First Ward, wanted to do as a councilwoman is to get a grocery store down there, but it's kind of hard to tell people you need a grocery store. So alternative we did for next to little money, we partnered with Aldi's, the JTA, and HUD, and we created a shuttle program that will run every Saturday for the next 60 weeks. And the bus will pick people up at the King Community Center, Chalet Terrace, the St. John's Church of Chrysler on Mechanic Street, Southridge Park on Francis Street, and the Elaine and the Otsego Apartments. And it runs various times throughout the day. It starts at 11 and it stops at 3. And it'll take you to Aldi's and back. And the nice thing about this is it's only $1 for the round trip, where the regular bus service is like $1.50. And I do have some free passes, so if anybody's really interested in this program that's here tonight, I will be glad to give you some free passes to get the program kicked off. And the one other nice thing is, on a traditional line route that you have on the bus line, they don't deviate from the route, and they're very time sensitive, and this bus is going to be a little bit more flexible. So if you live fairly close to any of these locations, the bus driver will help deviate off there, drop you off a couple blocks short or after your destination so that you don't have to carry your groceries as far. So hopefully residents will take advantage of that opportunity for them to get fresh, more affordable produce and groceries from a grocery store versus having to go to the convenience stores to get their staples. So,
excellent.
Thank you. Our people appreciate it.
Good program.
It's going to be a good program. There's too many people that are shopping at party stores, and they serve a purpose for a convenient item when you run out midweek or something. But we got to get people to good food.
That's correct. Thank you.
So now let's talk about the serious stuff here. The things that are happening in our community that it's serious. We need to get in front of it so we can address it now. We need to have this discussion as a community, as a neighborhood, as residents of this great city. And tonight, I will basically turn the microphone over to Police and Fire Operations Director Matt Heins, who's
we can skip a lot.
he has a lovely picture there. I told him to wear all that tonight, but he said no. But yeah, I didn't. I just put that up there to show that Matt's a serious guy. He's well respected in the law enforcement community, and he knows what he's doing. So I'll turn the mic over to Matt and have him explain what's going on, some of the stuff maybe that you're working on to combat this, and what residents can maybe do to help out, and help you and help themselves.
You can start by taking a picture on.
I'll go to the more important.
Yeah, this is much better.
Didn't give
Yeah.
yet.
So, thank you everyone for coming tonight. I appreciate your involvement. One of my themes you're going to hear tonight is community involvement. This is a community problem. This is not a police department problem. It's not a fire department problem. It's a community problem. We're one aspect of that. You're one aspect of that. By working together, we can resolve these problems. These problems are serious. We encounter these problems. I've encountered them for 24 years of being in the police department. I'll give you a little background on what we tend to see occur. Once I go through everything, we'll certainly open up for questions and answer. Lieutenant Hitt is our patrol lieutenant, and he'll come down and be able to answer some questions also. But what usually we see occur over in these type of incidents, and what we're talking about in these type of incidents are major violent felonies. People shooting each other, people assaulting each other, many times surrounding the drug trade or the gang trade. And not all the time, I can say 100% of the time, but many times that's what we see the root of the problem. So what we see occurring is individuals are involved in these type of illegal activities, move into an area, bring their problems with them, all of a sudden we see a spike in crime. And this is what we're seeing today. We really began to see it probably early to mid-April, and we started to see it peak. And so we've encountered this multiple times over our careers, and usually what we refer to them as hotspots. And what we do to combat the problem is we begin to identify who's involved, who are the players, who that we're aware of is out there committing the type of crimes that we're investigating. Many times we find that there's a small percentage of individuals committing a majority of the crimes. The old adage, 10% of the people causing 90% of the problems. And that's usually what we encounter. Now again, it's not 100%, but statistically that's usually what occurs. And so we begin to look at our records, begin to research the names that keep appearing with police contacts. And we begin to whittle it down. We begin to talk to the detectives who usually handle these cases. We have conversations with the Major Crimes Task Force, which is a task force made up of the Sheriff's Department, Blackman Township, the State Police, and the city. And we begin to see the names appear time and time again, not only in city cases, but in Blackman and the Sheriff's Department of the county. So these crimes are crossing jurisdictional lines. These criminals are crossing jurisdictional lines. And so we begin to gather the information. We begin to identify who are the people involved. Now, we're very careful with this because we have limits as far as what we can do and what we can't do. We still have to ensure that we protect the constitutional rights of every citizen in our community. And so we don't just go willy-nilly and say, well, we don't like John Smith, and so we're going to put him on the list. My criteria is that they have to have multiple contacts with law enforcement. They have to have some type of history with the type of activity we're looking at. Drug trade, violence, dealing with weapons. And so there's certain criteria that we set before we say, okay, who are the individuals that we're going to start to look at. And pretty soon you begin to see names rise to the top multiple times in these type of incidents. And that's who we begin to focus on. When I say focus, we begin to make a concentrated effort with all our resources to deal with these individuals. Who's involved with that process? Prosecutor's office. They're involved. They're at the table. Why? Because in the system, when you arrest somebody, they'll go up to the courts, and they may plead the cases up. And so if we catch somebody with a handgun, they may plead the case to some other type of crime. They may not get convicted for a felony charge. And so we bring the prosecutor to the table and we say, look, these individuals are causing multiple problems for us. They're very violent. We need to deal with them. No deals. So anytime we have contact with them, we send the case up to the prosecutor's office. And hopefully, they'll say no deals. But again, it's not 100%, but that's one tactic that we use. Alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, federal agency. We've had a long relationship with alcohol, tobacco, and firearms out of Ann Arbor. Very useful relationship for us because many times you find that the penalties for a federal case are much higher than a state case. And so, if we can put a case together at a federal level, the feds will come in and take the case on the individual. Now, they have some very strict guidelines as far as what cases they can take. And so, what is more helpful for us in working with alcohol, tobacco, and firearms is the resources that they have. At a federal level, as you would expect, they have all sorts of resources available to them that we may not have available at the local level. And so, we bring ATF to the table. With them come the prosecutors at the federal level. We bring multiple jurisdictions to the table, I already mentioned. We bring the Sheriff's Department, we bring the State Police, we bring Blackman Township. Primarily because they're bringing information to the table. They've had contact with these individuals out in their jurisdictions, and so we have a very good history of the individuals we're looking at to determine what are they doing, where are they doing it, who are they hanging out with. And so, I hate everybody's probably seen some of the cop shows on TV. I hate to refer to these things, but sometimes you'll see a chart with faces, and somebody will be at the top, and you'll see connections. We find that there are a lot of connections with the individuals that we're dealing with in some aspect. And we'll find if we can focus on one individual, get charges on that individual. Many times it'll give us information on the next individual that they're dealing with, and so that's how we build those cases. Anybody else that you can think of, Elmer, that we bring to the table?
The Homeland Security team.
Homeland Security team, Michigan State Police, we invite them to the table. They have a team that's called Hometown Security. And they're made up of multiple troopers, and they come into an area, they flood the area for enforcement purposes, traffic stops, field contacts. And so you may see state police cars in the neighborhoods. That's Hometown Security coming in per our request. They will not come in unless we request them to come in. With added resources, we ask them to come in and help us. And so they come in, they flood the area, and that's why you may see state troopers driving in the neighborhoods. Again, their primary focus is traffic stops and field contacts. How do the dopers and the criminals get around? Vehicles. And so one tool that we have available to us are legal traffic stops. Stop a car, find out who's driving it, where they're going, what's in the car, see what they're doing. That's one aspect that Hometown Security uses that we use to stop individuals. We will use other federal agencies if need be. FBI will get involved if need be. IRS will get involved if need be. That's one advantage of alcohol, tobacco, and firearms at the table is they have those contacts, so it's easier for us to get a hold of them. So, Elmer, Lieutenant Hitt's going to pass out some crime numbers. If you could do that, please. Once he does that, we'll talk a little bit about the crime numbers. What we're seeing now, right now, again, is primarily activities involving firearms, individuals shooting at each other. And they're doing this at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they're doing this at 2 o'clock in the morning. And once we started looking into this, then the same themes started to surface. Narcotics trafficking, gang activities, squabbles between individuals. So that's kind of what we're encountering now. We've also taken the extra step, we're putting some of our own units out on overtime and plain clothes in the area to flood the area so we can make more field contacts and deal with the individuals out there. So you may see individuals out there in street clothes, they're actual law enforcement officers focusing on 1st Street, 2nd Street, Franklin, 3rd Street. That's predominantly where we're seeing the problems right now. But this, one of the issues we run into when we start focusing on an area, if we don't make arrests quickly or we don't identify the individuals and start building cases, we move the problem someplace else. And that's a common occurrence that we encounter. So now we kind of play catch up, figure out where the problem moved to, and start focusing on that. So that's why it's important for us to be able to get in there, identify the individuals, and make the cases quickly so we can deal with it before it moves. But we're not always successful in doing it.
Chief, I'd just say if
I have a
you have a
question,
list
Chief.
of emails, if you left an email or if you're interested in these, let us know. There's actually one for everyone.
Yeah, I wasn't anticipating this big turnout. When Lieutenant Hitt talks a little bit later, he has his email, you have my email. Certainly send us requests if you want these numbers. These numbers are posted on our website every month. So there's a plethora of statistics on our website that you can go to and pull this information off. Now, these are a lot of numbers, and I'll hit a couple of the high points in just a minute. question, sir.
Yeah, I just wonder about that transportation of drugs. Do you ever think that maybe they're delivering on bicycles too?
Yes, absolutely.
And
They'll
mopeds.
They'll do it on bicycle, they'll do it on foot, they'll do it in
Yeah,
vehicle.
I live by Reed Manor and I see an awful lot of
Yes,
bicycle traffic going in there with guys with backpacks on.
yes.
It just looks a little fishy.
When, I don't know if everybody's aware, in the city of Jackson, you have to have a bicycle license, to ride a bicycle. You can get a ticket for riding a bicycle without a bicycle license. So,
Is there a
In
in order, for
BWI?
us, in order for us to give a ticket, you have to give us your ID, so we have to find out who you are.
I was just kidding. I asked if there was driving under the influence while riding a bicycle. So.
No, we'd fill up the jails if that was the case. I'm gonna go through these numbers real quick. I know not everybody has them, but I wanted to hit on them briefly to give you an idea. We break our crime numbers. We file the national FBI requirements. We break them down into what we call Part 1 and Part 2 crimes. Part 1 crimes are at the top of the list. Murder, sexual assault, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, and larceny, auto theft, and arson. We didn't set those have come from the feds, and those are Part 1, these are notes. Everything else is Part 2 crimes. So, you can take a look at those. These numbers are changed constantly, and I'll give you an example of why they changed. We take a report of an assault. We generate the report, we finish it, we send it through, we put it in our crime numbers. A week later, a month later, 2 months later, we find out it was a false report in some fashion, one way or another. We have to go back and correct that in the system. So those numbers are frequently changing because of those type of situations. We don't go in, we don't lower these numbers just because we're afraid of having high numbers. One, that's unethical, and two, illegal. But they do change, and that's one example of why they do change. Other reason they change is the officers make mistakes in coding the reports. And so they erroneously code it as a simple assault when it might be an aggravated assault. And so each month when we print these numbers, I go through and look for anomalies. Is there a spike? And if there is a spike, why is there a spike? Are we having a problem? Is it a problem on the street? Is it a problem with reporting? And so we look at those numbers, try to determine what's going on. And so that's another example why these numbers might change.
What is the change?
Aggravated assaults, if you look, now, I'm looking at crime stats, April 2013, all the way to the right side column.
That's 2012.
If you look at aggravated assaults, which is a Part 1 crime, we're down 8% year-to-date from last year. So we're down a little bit, but if you look above that, robberies are up 38%. So one of the things we're running into are robberies.
I know I'm blind. Where's 2013?
If we only went to 2012.
You might, there's two different copies. You have the 2012. There's two different copies. There's one set of 2012 numbers, which is the entire year, and there's one set with April 2013 at the top. So they look exactly alike. I'm not sure if we had enough. Again, I apologize. I wasn't expecting this many people.
There it is right there.
What's that so hard?
You go to the second page of those numbers.
Holy crap.
Something interesting to point out near the bottom quarter, weapons offenses. That's where you begin to see the increase in the type of crimes. Weapons offenses, CCW. Basically, that's illegally carrying a weapon. That's all that is. And we're getting a lot, I cringe to say this, but we're running into a lot of weapons on the street right now. Everybody is carrying a weapon.
Yeah.
Some are carrying it legally, CPLs, and still pistol license. Many are not carrying it legally. Got a lot of problems with weapons right now. Weapons
That are
offenses,
actually out on the streets. I mean, we're not talking about in homes. We're talking about people floating around.
people carrying them around, yes. Weapons offenses, you'll see up about 25%. And you go down a couple, weapons offense others up 163%. Now that's a high number, but if you look at the actual numbers reported, it's gone up from 8 to 21. Weapon offense others are situations such as shots fired. We get a lot of calls of shots fired. That's where we would categorize that. Many times we'll show up, somebody will call it with shots fired, and we show up and we call it GOA, gone on arrival. There's nobody around, there's nothing there. We may find shell casings on the ground, we may not. So many times what happens is we'll get shots fired, we'll arrive, it's GOA, gone on arrival, nobody's around, nobody was hit, we don't know what happened. Many times we'll arrest somebody later on down the road, and they'll tell us who was shooting at who, and that's when we find out what was going on. Yes, ma'am.
I know in bigger cities, they have a detection that will say when there is a shots fired.
Yes, it's a software program, Shots Fired, I forget the title, very expensive, very expensive. And you'll see some of the bigger cities, I think Washington DC has it, I think Philadelphia has it. It'll tell you where the shots came from, but you still gotta go investigate it.
Right.
So, very expensive, probably out of our reach from financial standpoint.
Let's see if we can't hack a copy for you. No, I'll just.
Just saying, if you look through these, Part 2 crimes are primarily influenced by enforcement. So you look in there, there's drunk driving on Part 2 crimes. Officers are out, they're more active, they make more stops, you get more drunk driving arrests, you start to see an increase. At the top of the page, you'll see VCSA, which is Violation of Controlled Substance Act. That's a drug offense. That's up 33%. So you could probably attribute that to multiple things. The officers out there making more arrests, more drugs out on the street, more people trafficking in drugs. Could be a number of those factors that come into play. I'm not a big numbers guy because we have to look at the numbers because it gives us an indication of where the crimes are occurring. But I don't know if you're like this, but if I look at those for more than a half hour, I'm burned out. But we do look at them every month. We pay attention to them. We see if there's a spike. If there's a spike, we ask, okay, is there a spike in crime? Or is there a problem with reporting? So we start to look at those. And if we identify a spike in crime like we have here, then we begin to ask the questions. What's occurring? Why is it occurring? What do we need to do?
It sounds like with a little bit of software, and I used to be a software engineer, so I can tell you this. You've mentioned two things. One thing is people, contacts and people,
Yes.
okay? Then you've got this is the back end of that.
Yes.
What you really need is a piece of software in the middle. It takes those two groups and would automatically track it for you. In other words, I'm seeing an uptick in
Yes.
felony assaults. Well, then all of a sudden I've got somebody who's been released from prison.
Yes.
And, instead of you having to manually go out and search it, it seems like you could almost use this data to be predictive.
Yes, and that's the intent. We have crime mapping. We're kind of changing around the county's GIS system, but we do have crime mapping, and that's exactly what we use it for.
Oh, that's good stuff.
And you bring up a good point. One other party that comes to the table when we're doing this is parole, DOC. Parole has amazing power over these guys that are on parole. They can do whatever they want with these guys. They can go search their house. They can stop them. They can do amazing things with these guys. And it's a valuable tool for us because, again, we have some certain restrictions. We can't just barge into somebody's house.
Right.
Unless we have certain circumstances. Parole, if the guy's on parole agents can go in. And so it's a huge tool for us. And unfortunately, like we had last week, the gentleman that shot himself at the party store, we have people on parole carrying guns. Now he's going back to prison. So, yes, sir, do you have a question?
Well, you're comparing 2013 with 2012, and it's, that's fair, but shouldn't you go back farther too? Because it's, just because 1 year there's it makes it look like the numbers are more bigger than maybe they should be. Because like with murder, we're minus 100%, but there was three,
Yes. And we do that. The question was, should we go back farther? And we do that. Just for the purposes tonight, I wanted to point out the fact that there has been an uptick in crime in the area that Andy wanted to talk about. That was 1st Street, 2nd Street, 3rd Street, that area. We do have a 30-year crime comparison on our website, if you want to go look at that. And you get a good read for over the years, the type of crimes that have occurred. So we do look at that. Yes, ma'am.
I was just wondering don't you think that it's reflective, the unemployment rate and the crime increase?
You probably should ask a professor from Michigan State University in that aspect. I can't say with certainty there's a correlation. You can certainly assume that, but there are a lot of factors that come into play. I can only base it on my experience of what we encounter on the street and why they're shooting each other. And many times it's because of the drug trade or the gang activity. And one aspect that I haven't mentioned yet that is probably the most important aspect of this whole process, it's you. It's the community. It's the community involvement. We have 47 sworn officers for the city of Jackson. We work 12-hour shifts, 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. We, on average, put out 6 cars a shift. 6 cars a shift to cover 11 square miles. And so, depending on how the day goes, you may have good police coverage because they're not tied up on calls. But a good example was last week when the gentleman went to the party store with a handgun and we got a call. That tied up 5 of our cars for multiple hours. And now all of a sudden, you may have 2 cars for a period of time covering the city answering calls for service. Doesn't leave a lot of free time. 47 sworn. I think they do a good job considering the resources we have, but you heard me mention who we invited to the table to help us. And the reason we do that is because we have limited resources. Is it unique to Jackson? No, it is not. Sheriff's Department's running into the same problem. I'm sure everybody's seen the news in the paper. They're talking about tough budget times this year at the county. I've talked to the sheriff. We talk often. He's concerned about his staffing levels. He doesn't know if he's going to be able to keep everybody he has or not. State police, we all know the story in the state police, they're way down. And so probably it's more important now than ever that we work together. And Jackson County has been blessed with a very cooperative law enforcement community. Blackman Township needs support, we'll send people out there, and vice versa. If the state police need support, within reason, we'll send them out there. We're not going to send them to Grass Lake or someplace like that. Chances are guys won't be able to find Grass Lake once they leave the city. But Jackson County has been blessed with a cooperative law enforcement community. They will bend over backwards to help each other. This isn't the case in other places in Michigan. I've been in places in Michigan where the Sheriff's Department and the state police won't even sit at the same table. And it just baffled me in this day and age why there's not a level of cooperation.
That goes back to leadership.
There's some history there, sure, certainly. Jackson County Sheriff's Department handles central dispatch. So when you pick up the phone and call 911, it goes to the Jackson County Sheriff's Department. They sort out the calls, they figure out what's going on, they dispatch us to the calls for service. And so if you have an issue with dispatch, it's the Sheriff's Department that handles that and hires out the dispatchers to send them out. I'm certain the Sheriff's Department would allow you to go down and look at that central dispatch. I encourage you, if you have an opportunity, to go down there on a Friday night. It is crazy, the amount of calls that come in there and what they deal with. The city alone, we handle about 37,000 calls a year for service.
Jesus.
And so we're busy for a community our size. And so I think it is leadership, and we work well together. We're fortunate, and we rely on each other to get the resources we need to deal with the problems. But back to my original statement. The community, you are the most important aspect of this situation here. We absolutely depend on you to feed us information about what's going on. Now, when I say that, I don't say that with the intent of encouraging you to go out and confront individuals in your community.
Real guns?
You can take CPL classes. I think there's somebody in back that offers CPL classes. It's a good choice. But we do not encourage you to go out and confront people. We encourage you to be good witnesses. To look out your window and see what's going on. To identify who's doing what in your neighborhood, because natural human tendency is to know what's going on in your neighborhood, know who goes where, when they go, when they come, what cars belong in the driveway, what cars don't. You have that information, and that's what we depend on. If you see something that's suspicious, call the police. I cannot begin to tell you how many times I've heard people say, well, I thought it was kind of unusual, but I didn't want to bother you, so I didn't call. We are here for that very purpose. Don't feel like you're bothering us. This may be the one piece of the puzzle that puts it all together. And so we are really dependent on the community to say, hey, this individual or this car or this situation just doesn't seem right, and you swing by and check it out. And if a good witness is somebody that pays attention to what the person looks like. What are they wearing? What's the color of their shirt? What's the color of their pants? What's the color of their shoe? Do they wear glasses? Do they have a beard? Are there any scars? What kind of car are they driving? It's 2-door, 4-door, color, dents, bumper stickers, cracked windshield. Those distinct features are what we are looking for when we talk about being a good witness. But whatever you do at the end of the day, do not put yourself in harm's way. If you're afraid that you might be targeting yourself or bringing attention to yourself and putting your safety in jeopardy, then don't do it. It certainly isn't worth it. Yes, ma'am.
You're aware that the criminals listen to scanners?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
So could you explain to me why the 911 operators said on the scanner to call even though they were anonymous?
Well, they're not supposed to. And if that occurs, we need to be aware of it so we can notify the Sheriff's Department, let them know it might be an individual. We tell them if the person requests it remain anonymous, don't send the name out.
They just say stuff like, the person upstairs just called. And if you're listening to the scanner, you know who just called.
They're not supposed to, and I can let the sheriff know that, but unfortunately it does occur. And if you call and you want to remain anonymous, and then let them know that you want to remain anonymous and make sure the cop doesn't stop at the door.
That's your
Because that's kind of a
biggest
giveaway.
deterrent to public speaking right there.
I'm sorry?
That's your biggest deterrent to public speaking. And you're saying, we want to hear what you see, but then you say who it is out loud on the scanner. That's your biggest deterrent.
Okay.
That has to change.
Okay, I can certainly mention that to the sheriff's department. Yeah, certainly. Obviously, if the crime's occurring at the moment, you want to be a witness, that's great. But if you don't want to call at the moment, instead you work with an officer, you know an officer on a first name basis, or you have an email that you want to send to them, you can also do that. That certainly will come through. And you can also send it to Lieutenant Ed.
There was a shooting outside my window, a drive-by a couple of years ago, maybe last summer, and I didn't want to call right then because they were all still right there. I called at 10 o'clock at night and asked for a certain officer that I knew, and they said, we don't do that. And I said, can I meet him at a gas station? We don't do that. Would you like an officer to come to your house? And I said, no, they're still outside. It's dark and I'm scared. And they said, okay, so you don't want to make a report? And I go, well, I have something to say. I saw something, I have identified. So I said no. And they showed up at my front door, 3 officers with police belts, bouncing them in their hands, intimidating me for information. When I said I'm not ready to speak right now because of the way, they parked a car on 3 cars all the way around my house. Did I not look obvious?
Okay. And we don't always get it right. Was it the city?
No. Yeah, it was very wrong.
Okay. All right. Again, if you have information,
No.
you send it to email to Lieutenant Head, you can send it to me, and we forward it. I can't control Central Dispatch, as I mentioned before, that's the Sheriff's Department's bailiwick. We certainly can mention it to them. And we have multiple times that these people want to remain anonymous, don't send out indications of what's the upstairs
So I should
neighbor
talk to
or
the
stuff of
sheriff?
that nature.
So I should talk to the sheriff about it?
I will mention something to them. I can mention something to them.
I have one other question.
All right, we're going to get back to you because there are other people that need questions. Go ahead, ma'am.
Well, I'd like to say that I lived in Ypsilanti before I moved here about 10 years ago. I got in the neighborhood watch that was on my street, and through that was invited to an Ypsilanti neighborhood watch training, which was amazing and fantastic. And it met for 8 weeks, I think. I don't really remember for sure anymore. This was 10 years ago, just the summer before I bought my house here. And they set up a crime scene for us to collect evidence. They set up, they had the SWAT team come in with the lights turned out and their shields all up. It was amazing. And every time, every week, there was amazing information for us to learn. At the end, the chief of police, who attended every session, came. There was an awards dinner at the end. It was just great. I don't know where they got the funding for all this, but it was
I'd like to
great.
know the answer to that.
But if someone from here, if they're
Volunteers.
still doing it, it was 10 years ago.
Right.
But
Why
if
can't
they're
they
still
volunteer,
doing it,
too?
And I know you guys were having some kind of neighborhood watch training,
Yes.
and I did not attend ever. Jeff Mazur came and did a brief presentation at Partnership Park, but it was very brief. We got to ride along in cars and help solve a crime. It was really cool.
But,
And I'm not afraid to call, and I want people to know that I call, because I have a reputation. I know I have a reputation on my block because someone walking down the alley and I'm taking groceries in and they said, "Are you the lady that always calls the cops?" And I said, "I will if there's a problem." And he said, "No, no problem." And there was a lady who moved in 2 doors down the other night, and I'm out on my front porch at the tables, just sitting. I live alone, except for my kitties. And I could hear what was being said, and these 2 women who were chatting, and someone walked by, and they started bullying her. And after she had walked on, I said to them, "You know, what you did was wrong. You should not be treating her like that," and blah, 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 and whatever. And then, after they went across the street onto the porch, and I could still hear what they were saying, and they're a door down and across the street by now. And one woman said to the other something about that I was the one who calls the cops, and the other one said, "Oh, I can't have her do that because I'm on probation. So I really enjoy my reputation, and I think it makes a difference on my block.
When people realize that the neighbors are paying attention to what's going on, it doesn't.
And I don't call over the drop of a pin,
Right.
you know, unless something seems really to be going on. And
Let me speak to the aspect of neighborhood watch. We do encourage neighborhood watch programs.
and I'm not following everybody that wears a hoodie.
Our belief is in a neighborhood watch program is your program. We don't operate under the belief that we will come in, we will set it up, and we will run it, because you don't get buy-in from that aspect. We are there for support, we will help set it up, we'll begin the process of running it, and then we encourage it to go to the members in that community to continue to run it, because then you have buy-in, then you have active participation. Years ago, we used to do what was called the Citizens Police Academy, and it was that very same thing. And it was 10 weeks, 10 weeks, I believe? 10 weeks. 3 hours a night, or on Monday nights, and you would go through various aspects of law enforcement so you could kind of expose citizens to what we do and why we do it and how we do it.
But you're not doing that
And
anymore.
unfortunately, through the budget cuts over the years, last 3 or 4 years, we haven't done that. We've had conversation about bringing it back in kind of a different format. We've been knocking around the idea of doing it in a breakfast meeting, 1 hour, kind of shrinking it down but lengthening it in time. We haven't really committed to what is the best way to put that out there. But that was a good program because it brought citizens in. It let them get a look at what we do and how we do it, provided opportunities for them to ride along. And it was really helpful for us. And so we have looked at that. It's just there's quite a few things on our plate, and so it's been difficult.
They had prostitutes, former prostitutes come and talk. They had a lot of very informative, useful, interesting information that were presented. That was excellent.
Sure. Yes,
Sir, would you say that your primary problem is the budget now? Are you getting, or is it getting squeezed? I look at these numbers and, you know, when you're talking 6,000 encounters with 6 people in a shift, that's a pretty big coverage problem.
Well, certainly a budget becomes an issue, but I mean, that's not just our problem, that's a citywide problem. I mean, everybody knows there's a limited amount of resources, and so it's up to the council to make a determination how to distribute those
So as
resources.
citizens, how can we influence the distribution of those funds? Because, you know, law enforcement has to be, when you've got a spike in violent crimes, it has to be the primary concern of the citizens.
So you have to speak to your local representative, your local council person.
And I could say that in this budget coming up,
I
there's
didn't even
a
know that there was an increase in crime.
$400,000 increase in the police budget.
Good
to help
stuff.
try to do some stuff there. General fund is $21 million, the police is 8, and the fire department makes up about 4, 3.5 or 4. So almost more than half of the general fund budget is going to public safety. So there is a considerable amount of resources that are tied to the law enforcement and the fire.
And that's not unusual. You will see that most budgets, municipal budgets, about 62% is spent on public safety. That is about the norm, and so public safety being police and fire services. And so if you look at other communities, that's average. And unfortunately, it's a sign of the times because of the economy. And as I said earlier, this is not unique to Jackson. This is across the board. I go to Chiefs conferences, and it's kind of refreshing because it's like, boy, we had it tough, but there are places that have it a lot harder than we've had it. And I'm amazed that they're still making it work. Will that problem be alleviated in the near future? Probably not. We just have to make do with the limited resources we have. You know, one of the problems, and this is a bigger issue for than me, this is something Councilman Fronfaulker deals with, is the revenue stream is reduced. People are leaving the city. I think we're taking the correct action as far as dealing with the vacant homes, getting those vacant homes out of there. Those attract crime. Those attract individuals. There's a place on 2nd or 3rd Street. A couple weeks ago, we had a shooting. They ran into one of the vacant houses. So I think we're moving in the right direction by taking some of those homes down to kind of alleviate some of that problem. But that's just one aspect. That's just one aspect. I want to get this gentleman's been.
Yes, so when Jan Namphy was in our area, we knew who the officer was.
Yes.
Now we don't.
Yes.
And she was on foot patrol a few times and on bicycles and stuff, and I think that helped 100%.
Absolutely, agree with you 100%.
But we don't even know who the patrol officer is.
I agree with you 100%.
They hide.
Yeah, they don't hide. They don't hide. The problem we've encountered is we had some good times with steady budgets that were pretty healthy, and then because of the fiscal problems in the country, we saw a reduction in our staff. When I first took over, we had 67 sworn. Today we have 47. The end result is they don't have the free time to make those contacts, which are vitally important. I agree with you 100%. And I hope to get back to that as quickly as possible, but the problem we run into with 6 individuals out on the street, it makes it very tough to have that free time to make those contacts. Summertime is very difficult because that is our busy season. Once school gets out, it seems to really start to spike, and we're off and running for the rest of the summer.
And these are the sergeants. I didn't put the officers down there, but majority of the 5th Ward here is the David 2 area, which is Paul Gross, and you guys would know who the officers are on there. And then people that live east of the river, up on the north of Michigan, you're in Baker 1, and then people on the west side of the river is in Adam 2, so don't know where you're all from. And then I know some people are outside of the city, so if you live over here or over there, that's who you are. So, and like Matt was saying, if you see something that you don't, it's not necessarily a crime, a lot of activity or something like that. I know I get a lot of calls about people saying, hey, there's a drug house in my neighborhood. I know there's people in and out all the time. I'll turn those over to the police. So a lot of times I'll be like, well, here's what they're going to ask me, so why don't you start getting that information? They give it to me, and I'll turn it over to those guys, so you don't even have to be involved. But if you don't want to deal with me, you can go call these guys and leave a voicemail, or they'll call you back, or email them, however you want to do it. But
yeah, the sergeants are hard to get hold of via phone because we're down to 1 sergeant per shift for the most part. And so they come in, they send the guy, they do the detail, they send the guys out on the road, they take care of the administrative stuff, and then they hit the road. And so many times they're not at the desk. So if you call the desk, it might be tough to get a hold of them. Emails are a great way to get a hold of them, or again, you can send Lieutenant Hitt an email or myself an email and make sure he gets to the right individual. There are all sorts of questions. You can go to the back.
Yes, when I came back, and the minute moved back to Jackson and got my husband's belongings, Janet was coming around asking questions about his, what he had. They've been back periodically asking questions. They've never left me any card or anything. And I was wondering, who do I talk to about this, and how do I find out what they want? Because he was diabetic, I'm a diabetic, so I have syringes, that's prescription, and I was just wondering, do I have to take that prescription down to the police department to get data of coming around and asking questions?
No, what I'll have you do is get with Lieutenant Hitt, and we will get that information to the sergeant out of JNET, and we'll get you an answer to that. JNET, if you're not aware, Jackson Narcotic Enforcement Team is our drug unit. It's made up of, we used to have 3 officers, we're down to 1 officer from the city, 2 from the sheriff's department, and a couple from the state police, and the state police lieutenant runs it. So it's been drastically reduced because of budgetary problems. But that is our drug unit. They're the ones that are out there in plain clothes that you might see running around on the street. Did you have a question?
I do. I was just curious. I live around 3rd Street.
Mm-hmm.
And there's obviously been a lot of activity on 3rd Street.
Yes.
I'm just wondering what it is like that's concentrated. Is it gang related? Is it more weapons related? What is like the, because I mean there's been numbers of people, I mean probably in the hundreds weekly with a lot of police officers.
and is it random or is it targeted? Or?
Now, what we're finding is there's a relationship. Many times we find a relationship between the victim and the suspect. And it's they know them, they're in one group versus another group. You call them a gang, and we do call them a gang, but when we call them a gang, don't think of like the Bloods or the Crips that you used to hear about in LA. Loose affiliation here, but we still call them a gang. We treat them in such a fashion. Narcotics trafficking, weapons, and it's usually one group fighting with another group. And so rarely do we see it's a random act of violence. I'm walking down the street and I get shot just because I'm walking through the neighborhood. Many, many times what it turns out to be is one individual has a problem with another individual. They know each other in some aspect, and it results in a shooting or an assault or something of that nature. as well.
So it-
That's what we're encountering.
It's not
right
so
now.
much drug related as,
Oh, no,
I guess.
there's drugs involved.
I didn't know, I mean,
Yes.
with everything that's going on more
Yes.
recently, is it mostly just fighting, or they are,
I wish I could say it was mostly fighting, but
It's
it's
a little bit of
plethora.
everything?
It's fighting, it's shooting each other, it's drugs are involved, continuing problems. What we see happen is when one individual shoots another individual, well, then the victim of that crime goes and gets his buddies so he can get even for that first shooting. And so now we have a second shooting. And it just kind of perpetuates itself until we're able to arrest one of them and make a case on it. Many times what we run into is we'll get the victims, and the victims will say, I didn't see anything. Walking down the street, just got shot. I don't know who shot me. I don't know what's going on. We know they're not telling us the truth, but there's nothing we can do with it. Now, we may be able to build a case later if we arrest somebody else and they give us information. But many times, the problem we run into is they will not cooperate with us.
Because he's gonna get his buddy to shoot
That's what they
him.
tell us. We'll take care of it. We'll deal with it.
That's why he won't say
It's
anything.
very difficult for us to put those cases together. Prosecutor won't try those cases if you don't have witnesses that are willing to come forward. And it's dealing with this with one hand tied behind our back. And so, again, it comes back to the issue of being involved, having witnesses and giving us information. It's very important, very helpful to us.
now is that information set on like the Facebook page too? Because I know that there's a lot of new, or, a lot of people are making that useful as far as that information. Has there been anything regarding, I guess, Fifth Ward with that on Facebook?
But what we try to primarily use Facebook for is to send out the activity for the last 24 hours. If you get the Nixa reports, that's a kind of a cleaned up version of what is going on in the last 24 hours in the city. We don't put some of the stuff we don't want to put out there for one reason or another.
Right, well.
And so, certainly if you have questions, don't hesitate to call us. I mean, we'll tell you what we can. I mean, sometimes we don't want to jeopardize the cases, and so some of that stuff we just don't release. But Lieutenant Hitt's always available, and Lieutenant Simpson's available, myself. And if you have questions, don't hesitate to call us. We certainly will tell you what we can. Yes?
I live on the corner of Biddle and Second, which has been a real hot spot. And I was just wondering if you have any ideas about bringing back the resident officers that you had like 10 years ago? And if you did, you think that made a big difference in the crime?
Why can't they? Why wouldn't they be able to get one of the
Resident
vacant
officer was
houses?
a good program. I believe it made a difference
I loved
because
it.
you have an officer in the neighborhood, people know that. Issue we run into is staffing.
Okay, but
Is a problem with
is
staffing.
it something that they brought up about possibly funding again?
There
Was
has
it
been.
was it really expensive?
Well, it's not, it wasn't expensive from the standpoint of providing the house. What the cost was for the body, for the person.
Right.
And so, when you're out on foot, dealing with that's a long-term solution, you really get into the problems and try to resolve the problems, versus in a car where you can get dispatched calls and handle the calls for service.
Right.
It becomes a staffing issue is what we struggle with.
Oh, okay. So my other part to that is, if you combine the services that they had talked about, the fire, EMS, police,
Yes.
would that open up more money to be able to have more officers?
Well, it depends on what side of the fence you stand on there.
I'm on the middle, I don't really know.
It has the potential to put more people on the street if you were to combine services. Doesn't necessarily save money, because when it comes down to it, the money is in the personnel. And so you still have to have a minimum number of personnel if it's separate police and fire or it's combined. And so you really got to start looking at the numbers and start crunching the numbers and make a determination. What is satisfactory staffing for both?
But what do you think personally? Do you think it would increase the security if we combine services?
It has the potential, yes.
Okay.
If I can get more people out on the street,
Right.
dealing with calls from service or being visible, that certainly has an impact. Absolutely.
Maybe that should be brought up again, Mr. Andy.
Oh, put it on the idea thing, because that was one of the primary reasons we were going for that, is to try to get more
Right.
bodies on the street. You know, the guy that's floating around, go to an EMS call, but he's only there for a little bit, then you get back on the street.
Right.
Is there any grant money around, Chief,
For
police officers, for increasing police staff?
there is some grant money for law enforcement, but there's strings attached. And I didn't feel it was financially viable for the city to get tied into that grant because of the strings that were attached. Fire department currently has a SAFER grant, and they have nine firefighters under that SAFER grant. That expires August the 14th. And so
There was no requirements.
There was no strings attached to that. It's short term, absolutely.
Yeah, when you take a grant like that, you gotta watch to see what the tail is that is. Sometimes it's 2 years, and at the end of the 2 years, if your financial situation improves, you should be able to absorb those officers or those firefighters. Or if there's requirements that say, okay, you will give you money for 2 years, so you can hire officers, but at the end of the 2 years, you have to keep them on for 2 years. Well, that can be problematic when you're a little concerned about what your future of your budgets are. Now things are starting to level off in Jackson. Now we can start having those discussions on taking grants with a little bit of handcuffs on them. But before, we wanted to stay off the handcuffs of grants so that we didn't get tied into something that we couldn't afford, because that wouldn't be fair to the employees or the citizens to mismanage that. And then about the residence officer program, we funded that with CDBG money years ago. I mean, that's before my time. And since 2001, CDBG money is almost, I don't know, it's down 30–40%. So each year the federal government keeps giving us less and less allocation. So it means less and less to kind of spread around for those type of programs. It was a pretty expensive program, if I remember looking at the
Yeah, we had
budgets.
3 officers at the time, so it was quite an investment at the time. But again, our staffing was much higher at that point too. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Oh, you.
Yeah, okay. Well, I was listening to the old communities in Detroit this morning.
Good luck to
And
them.
it should make you feel like you've done a great job. But
I
everybody's
wish
in the same boat. Everybody's doing more with less. And whether it's a department or whether it's even the citizens, we're all doing more with less. And he was talking about some approaches coming out of Cincinnati, which is a rough neighborhood of Cincinnati. And one of the things he talked about was getting the citizens involved. And it struck me that it's something we could do here, not necessarily with all casters, but even with the business community. And I don't mean downtown, meaning it's all businesses, but when you have a business in a residential neighborhood, a party store, a little bar, restaurant, and where they would be a meeting place so that citizens would be able to meet their particular officers and the sergeants before there's a problem, because you do an amazing job when you talk to people, and I wish every officer could do what you do, because you are really good with your public. But most of the time when you call a police officer, it's not a good situation. He treats us good. Something bad is occurring. So being able to have a personal relationship with your particular area officers would be a great thing. It would be an invaluable tool for the businesses, and it would give the citizens an opportunity. So, I mean, if you took a bar like Duffy's, they would be glad to hold a meeting, and people would be there and buy sandwiches, and they would get to meet their particular, but it could be an alcohol-free event, but I mean,
We have those all the time.
Or a restaurant, or
We have something else that makes people happy, receptive.
before there's a problem.
And that's a very good suggestion, a very good point, is it's about relationships. At the end of the day, it's about relationships. And we find that when you know an officer, when you know it's not Officer Heins, it's Matt, you're more willing to talk to that officer and give them information. And so that certainly is a huge benefit for us. I encourage the officers to get out of their cars, to walk, meet the community, to ride the bicycles. But it can be difficult, because when you enter the busy season, you're handling lots of calls for service, and so they feel this pressure to handle these calls for service instead of saying, well, hold those calls for a couple hours while I do some making contact with my citizens. Well, that's good, but now all of a sudden the people that are calling might be getting upset. Why is it taking 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours to get an officer here? So we're always trying to balance that. Now, with that being said, anybody in this room that wants to have an officer come over and talk to you, to your neighbors, to a group, call us. We will make certain that the officer is there. And we welcome that, absolutely welcome that. If it's a business, if it's a residence, if it's an apartment complex, we absolutely welcome those phone calls to send those officers out there. And building those relationships, you cannot put a dollar amount on that. Very helpful to us.
And one more question. As police officers or city employees, is there a requirement for them to live in the city, or can they live outside the city?
State law says 20 miles is jurisdictional limits, and that changed, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago. The state came in and kind of...
We would love them to all live in the city, but, the state law says that they're not required to.
I live in the city, I live over by Cascades Manor House. Living in the city gives you a whole different perspective, because at the end of the day, when I go home from work, I hear the neighbors, I hear the dogs, the cars driving by, the loud music, the teenagers, and so I know what that's like to say, this is frustrating. Especially when Lumen Christi gets out at the end of the summer, and I shouldn't pick on Lumen Christi, but it seems that they're driving across and coming down through there, but it's young kids driving through there like Leadfoot, and they're zooming through the neighborhood. And so I have appreciation. They might, maybe that's why they're doing it. So I have appreciation for when people call and say, you know, this is driving me nuts, this is crazy. So I wish, my preference would be the officers could live in the city, state stepped in, said, we know what's best for you, we're gonna give them 20 miles of jurisdictional limits, and so unfortunately, we just can't do anything about that.
How many do live in the city?
You know, I don't know off the top of my head, it's 3 or 4 at the most that I'm aware of. So not many.
More police officers than firefighters, I know that. I don't know.
Not many. In the back, yeah.